Supreme Court and High Court judges are often criticized for taking long court vacations. In fact, what is your stand on it? In fact, this summer vacation had been a thumping success. The vacation courts had disposed of more than 1,170 cases. So has a strong message been sent across as far as the impression that judges take long vacations is concerned?
Well, the criticism that judges enjoy vacations is completely uninformed. I wish people would come and follow a day in the life of a judge across the district judiciary, the high courts, and the Supreme Court. For one thing, the work of a judge does not come to an end when we rise from the court. The work of a judge continues well after we rise from the court. For instance, in the evening, we have to spend the entire evening editing the orders which we had delivered in court. Thereafter, we have to read for the next day. There are cases where judgments have been reserved, so you have to sit down in your chambers or at home and dictate those judgments. My own experience over the last 24 years is that all judges work through the week. It's a 7-day week for all judges of the Supreme Court, and I dare say for the high courts and the district judiciary as well. Judges also perform other responsibilities such as convening legal aid clinics or the lokadalats. Our district judges do multifarious functions apart from just being judges. That's one aspect of the matter. In the higher courts, the second aspect of the matter is why do we have some of these vacations? Actually, calling them vacations is a misnomer. Even during the vacations, judges spend a good deal of time preparing the judgments which have been kept reserved. For instance, in the summer vacation, with just the summer recess which got over, I was working personally on judgments of the Constitution bench on which we have heard arguments and where we'll have to declare judgment. And the same applies to all my colleagues as well. So it's really not in that sense very correct to say that judges have vacations. Vacations meaning thereby that you are doing nothing apart from enjoying family time. It does not work that way. But apart from what I just told you, there's another aspect which I want to emphasize, and which is the radical change which has been brought about within the Supreme Court in the last 2 years. On an average, during vacation times, about 450-460 cases would be disposed of in the summer recess, which is the longest recess which we have of about 6 weeks. This year, we had at least 3 benches operating, actually 3 benches operating almost every day of the working vacation. As a result of which, we had close to 20 benches operating in the Supreme Court this time. The result was that about 1,170 cases have been actually disposed of by the Supreme Court during the course of the summer recess, and over 4,000 cases were listed before the court, which meant that the judges had to read the files of these 4,000 cases. They heard arguments in a good number of these 4,000 cases, and they've actually disposed of close to over 1,100 cases, 1,170 cases to be precise. So this is a trend which I hope will continue. One last aspect of the issue of vacations which I have to emphasize is that there is a very important stakeholder in the judicial process, and that stakeholder is the bar itself. Now, lawyers need time off during the vacations also. The courts are not manned only by judges. The lawyers have a vital role in the judicial process. And the reason why lawyers need vacations, apart from the fact that they have family commitments, that they have their own responsibilities to their families, is the fact that lawyers, particularly in the Supreme Court, are lawyers who are drawn from the districts, from the states and the union territories across India. Now, the vacations are the time during which they need to link up with their own constituents, go back home, go back to their states, talk to people who brief them, discuss the cases which are going to come up in the near future, in the foreseeable future. And therefore, it's not just the judges who decide cases. We are also dependent on the cooperation of the bar, because this is really a collaborative endeavor. It's when lawyers argue cases that we can hear those cases and we can dispose them of. So all in all, we look very greatly to the cooperation of the bar in increasing our footprints even during the so-called vacations, which, as I explained, are not vacations in the sense of having free time. One final point, and that's really something which is equally fundamental. The work of a modern judge, and I dare say even more so today than say 25 or 30 years back, is also to reflect on the law, to read the law, to understand the way the law is evolving for the future. So even during the time when the court is not sitting during the summer or the winter periods, judges are constantly required to keep themselves abreast of new developments in the law. Judges therefore have to spend a great deal of time reflecting, understanding the new developments in the law, read on jurisprudence, read upon other judgments which have been delivered by the court to keep themselves abreast of the developments which are taking place in the law. And hence it is important that we give judges time to reflect on these seminal issues, both in law and life. Our court, our Supreme Court, works much more than almost every other Supreme Court in the world. In terms of sheer numbers, we deal with over 50,000 cases in a year. 34 judges of the Supreme Court deal with over 50,000 cases in a year. As opposed to that, in most other countries, judges of the Supreme Court would be dealing with maybe a couple of hundred cases at the most at the end of the year. So in terms of our volume, in terms of the number of cases which we handle, the work which we as judges of the Supreme Court do is unprecedented. On every Monday and Friday, an average bench of the Supreme Court deals with at least 60 or 70 cases, sometimes 80 cases or more. This kind of workload no other Supreme Court in the world carries. Therefore, we must understand that the nature of the work which our judges do has no parallel elsewhere in any other country in the world.
It seems the Lordship had actually drawn a plan out on how to utilize the 2-year stint as the Chief Justice of India to do the maximum as far as bringing judiciary closer to public, make Supreme Court more accessible to litigants by harnessing information technology, and also unprecedented infrastructure development in Supreme Court. Can your Lordship list some of the big measures taken and some of the work that has given you tremendous satisfaction?
Well, I must say at the outset that the Chief Justice of India is first and foremost, of course, a judge. Like all other judges, you sit in court, you hear arguments, and you decide cases. And the true worth of a Chief Justice is not just in terms of the administrative work which you do, but in terms of the kind of judgments that you deliver, the kind of justice that you deliver. So first and foremost, my focus has been not to lose focus on the core role of the Chief Justice, which is to dispense justice, to deliver justice and decide cases. Now, having said that, the Chief Justice, of course, is first among the equals, as it is said, and the head of the administration of the Supreme Court. And we have taken a huge number of measures to make the Supreme Court tech-friendly. There has, if I may say so, been a technological revolution in the Supreme Court, whether it's in terms of digitizing case records, whether it is in making paperless courts, whether it's in making e-filing. Now, an initiative like e-filing ensures that any lawyer or litigant can file cases 24/7 by 365 throughout the year in the Supreme Court.